Okay, thank you. So you missed just a moment or two picking up this video now, but for those of you who are joining us virtually afterwards in the replay, I'm inviting those of you who are listening to write down your energy flows where your attention goes. I'll say it again, your energy flows where your attention goes. And no different than driving down a street or driving around a bend. When you're driving around a bend, you're not looking at the front of the car. You're not even looking several feet in front of the car. You're aiming your eyes around the bend so that you are able to make that curve naturally and that you are remaining in your lane. And so this is the same concept. Wherever your energy is flowing, you are giving life to the very object that your attention is placed on. And so what happiness and fulfillment is based on not resisting, coming to a place of non-resistance. And happiness and fulfillment are functions of acceptance. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. In fact, that's one of the things that we can do in order to no longer resist, right? So happiness and fulfillment are functions of acceptance. And I also like to say anything that we can manage to accept, we can be happy with and experience fulfillment. And this is ranging anywhere from being in an unhappy relationship to standing in a line that has 30 people in front of you and all of the emotions and also anything and everything in between and all of the emotions that it conjures up, that resistance and the thought of resistance that conjures up. So I'm just looking at my notes. I want to make sure I address everything today that I've thought about and meditated on. And so the first thing I want to talk about is, when does resistance strike? And we encounter resistance when we embark on new projects that take a significant amount of time and effort and motivation. It could be career related. It could be creative related. It could be relationship related. It could be business related. It doesn't matter what the endeavor is. The projects that cause the greatest amount of resistance are often the ones that are the most important to your specific personal, spiritual, professional, and even well-being development. A book that I've read several times, I highly recommend it. It's called The War of Art. It's written by Steven Pressfield. And he goes on to tell us that the more important a call to action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we are going to feel about answering it. And so to yield to the resistance deforms our spirit. When we yield to resistance, when we give into it, we're chipping away slowly but surely a little bit of our spirit. And it stunts us and makes us less than we are and we're born to be. This is what Steven Pressfield goes on to say in the book, The War of Art. Highly recommend that book if you have not read it yet. And resistance does not only apply to personal endeavors. Judgment and criticism of other people can often be born out of resistance. Rather than facing our own insecurities, our own fears, we focus on the perceived weaknesses of others. I know that I can't see any of you, and that's okay, but I just want to take a moment and invite you to take a moment to maybe just come to some clarity as to where resistance is in your life. Where is it showing up? What is the one thing that you are dreading the most? And this may sound a little bit familiar from the last group mini session I've done, because procrastination is a form of resistance. And that was the first one that I did, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper. So again, where in your life are you experiencing resistance? What is something that you do not want to do, but you know it's good for you? You know it's going to move you forward. Please write that down right now. Take a moment, think about that. And so rather than face our own insecurities or the fact that we are not moving forward in an area, on a project, in an endeavor that we are called to do, we're choosing in those moments not to face our own insecurities, and we're focusing on perceived weaknesses or potentially focusing on perceived weaknesses of others. So experiencing criticism and negativity from other people towards our ideas can also trigger resistance. Um, if your partner, if your boss, if your family is not supporting you in an area that you want to grow in things that you want to learn, in an endeavor that you want to take action on, if you're receiving resistance from other people, you are also going to naturally come up with resistance as well. It's much easier to throw in the towel than to push on in unsupported areas. And so one of the things, again, we'll touch on a little bit later, in terms of what we can do to overcome resistance, is to find yourself a tribe that absolutely supports you. And one of those things is I've created that, a monthly call to support you in your journey. And if you have any questions about that, we can talk about that offline. Um, Seth Godin, and I know that some of you are very familiar with his work. He's the author of Tribes, We Need You to Lead Us. And he advises us that remarkable visions and genuine insights are always met with resistance. Products, services, career paths, whatever it is, the forces for mediocrity will align to stop you. And when I say that to you, where in your life has other people or external factors resisted you as well? Please write that down. So what are some causes of resistance? Actually, it's about 12 after now. I'm asking that question again. Go ahead and write down your answers. What are some causes? What are the causes of resistance? We've identified a couple: external people not supporting you, you not wanting to actually push through. What are some other things? The number one cause of resistance is fear. And fear can take many, many forms. Um, it could be fear of failure, and we can be concerned about people judging us. Uh, it could be about fear of failing and fear of success, right? If you're not familiar with the feeling of success, if you're not familiar with experiencing a tribe around you, if you are not familiar with pushing through something and always stopping short, and you finally experience success of pushing through, that's going to feel awkward and unfamiliar to you. And we as human beings tend to avoid things that feel unfamiliar, even if it's good for us. So self-doubt also plays a huge role in resistance. You can ask yourself, who am I to achieve great things or tell people how to live their lives? That's something that I used to face back when I first started social work. I started social work and working with families and adults and their children as a 22-year-old. And who was I to, inform and counsel and coach families in their lives who have lived 30 more years than I did at that time. When I started my coaching career, I fell into that same back in 2011. When I stepped into coaching, I was faced with those types of resistance and feelings as well. Sometimes financial limitations can also be a resistance to moving us forward in the calling in a career path that we are being called to do. And my quick step on that, faith is a huge component to overcoming resistance. And just choosing to be faithful in your higher power, or whom I call God, is a great way to overcome resistance. More on that later. Uh, okay, and so what are the forms of resistance? There are many forms. Uh, I'm going to invite you to think about that for just a moment. And what is it that keeps you? What's one activity, one thing that keeps you from taking action on the very thing that you are really truly called, or that that you need to move forward in? That you are literally putting up as a form of resistance. So for me, I know that if I have a project that I'm working on, whether it's recording something, whether it's writing an article, whether it's preparing for an interview that's going to put me out there in front of people, my form of resistance are chores. Oh, I need to do that. I haven't done that in a while. I really need to get that laundry done. I really need to get that painting done. I really should go and do this and finish this project over here. And they're all valid because I haven't done them yet. They're all very valid, but those are forms of resistance to the most important act that I could be doing at that time, which is preparing, and also working within my calling, for example. Negativity is a form of resistance. It breeds resistance. By focusing on the barriers that stand in our way of achieving that important task, we are much less likely to take action. So, what are some steps to overcome the resistance? Um, we've got 4 minutes here. I'm going to give you three of them. The first one I mentioned earlier, and also in the first mini session that we did a couple of weeks back, and that is acceptance. It sounds so simple and it even sounds trite, but coming to a place of acceptance that whatever is going on, resisting us, or yeah, that is resisting us, or that we are putting up as a form of resistance, to accept that. And so how is it that we accept the things that are blocking us? I had an experience with a client. She's experiencing uh, no air conditioning here in Florida, and it's extremely warm right now, and in the summer months. And so she hasn't had air conditioning, and uh, she was resisting it early on and getting very angry and very frustrated. And of course, rightfully so, because when we're hot, we get frustrated and angry. We get tired. Our mechanisms to overcome things are deleted in many ways when we become warm. And so the first step for her was to accept it is what it is. She's experiencing what she's experiencing. Another example was of, sometimes I can be very impatient when there are 15 to 25 people in line and it doesn't seem to be moving. Okay, what do I do to overcome that resistance and that frustration? I accept it. How do I do that? I choose to accept it by literally declaring, I choose to accept exactly where it is that I am. I choose to accept that this actually might be working in my favor. If I'm running late for something and I'm behind and I get in my car to go drive to an appointment, I often realize that there was an accident that I could have literally have been involved in. So the me being frustrated about running late was actually resistance. But if I had just come to a place of acceptance, I could have avoided so much grief for myself and then come to a place of gratitude because I would have been involved in that accident, no doubt. So accepting the resistance is number one. Number two is knowing your resistances. Recognize what your resistance looks like and how it feels. It might look like another load of washing laundry, like I said, or binge watching Netflix. It could be an extra hour in bed or even doing paid work. Resistance can manifest as fatigue, shyness, and perfectionism. So knowing what your resistance looks like, knowing how it shows up is half the battle. It's almost like putting on armor against that resistance. And the third thing is applying mindfulness. One way, I want to leave this last thing for you here. We've got 1 minute. Whenever you are in a state of resistance, whenever you are not feeling peace, one of my most favorite go-tos is to drop out of your head and into your heart. And how do I do that? Or dropping out of my head and into my heart, because the heart is sacred. The mind can be problematic, even though it is meant to solve problems. The mind is where the battlefield is where we judge ourselves and other people. And so when I declare, when I state, when I dictate, when I tell myself, Pamela, drop out of your head and into your heart. I drop out of my head and into my heart. And I repeat that as many times as I need to in any given situation of resistance or pain, or when I'm noticing that I am not at peace. It works. I don't have the words to describe how well it works. I literally feel myself melt back into the present moment just by declaring those words. And so I offer those three practices of overcoming your resistance in helping you become the best version of yourself, in helping you experience your full and limitless potential. So thank you so much for joining me. We are at 12:20. Please, if you think of it, I would love to know what was most helpful for you by experiencing our time and energy of sharing today. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.